Good news for a lot of the restaurants this week when the governor announced that she is going to ease slightly some of the restrictions. Capacity starting Friday will be 50%. Some of the restrictions and the capacity limits were also reduced for some of the businesses as well. And I will say a lot of times I forget about the businesses, Tyler, because there's been so much focus on the restaurants. And I don't know, every time I'm at Home Goods, there's a huge line, so I don't know about those capacity limits.
Yeah, we seem to have heard so much more from the restaurants about the hardships they've faced during this pandemic that we kind of do forget about retail, and we kind of do forget about other shops. And like John McNamara was mentioning yesterday about those hotels and those catering businesses and those banquet halls who have had equal struggles to those of restaurants.
Yeah, so hopefully, though, with the vaccine, we're going to get to the back end of this pandemic. With us now, let's bring in our good friend Joe Bauman. He's the president for the Birmingham and Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce. Always great having you with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Always glad to be here.
You always have the coolest background. That looks awesome.
Thank you.
So tell us, what's going on over there in your neck of the woods?
So yes, the governor's rulings earlier this week about easing some of the restrictions is going to be gratefully helpful to our member restaurants, retail, spas, salons, workout facilities. We're grateful that they have the opportunity to increase their capacity, but significant challenges remain to all of our businesses. This morning, actually, this is very timely. The Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber is one of 6 chambers throughout the state of Michigan in conjunction with the state Michigan Chamber of Commerce. We launched what we're calling our Reopen Michigan Safely initiative, and it is specifically targeted towards reopening offices and allowing employees to come back to work. You may not be aware, but we are still under a very strict, the most strict order in the entire country right now in terms of mandating those who can work from home have to work from home. That order is up for review and expiration on April 14th. And we believe that it's critically imperative that employers be allowed to reopen their offices in a safe manner and allow employees to come back, because without the offices being full with workers, our restaurants and our retail and our downtown specifically will continue to suffer greatly because they just don't have that customer base anymore.
Yeah, I think about some of these office buildings that have like the small deli down, stairs, or, they offer lunch and breakfast and things of that nature. Those businesses have to be pretty much non-existent right now without people in these office buildings.
Sure. And first and foremost, we want to make sure that our employees and our offices stay safe. But you might recall back in April, every business in Michigan was required to develop and file a COVID plan with the state of Michigan as to how they were going to operate their business in a safe and efficient manner, both for the employers, the employees, and then any guests you may have in your place in business. So everybody already has a plan in place, and it came from OSHA and it came from the CDC. So our businesses, our offices are ready to reopen, but they're not allowed to. And all we're asking is that they be given the opportunity to develop a plan with their employees, something that everybody can be comfortable with, and start to reopen. Because if you go into downtown Birmingham, it's very quick and easy to see the devastating effect hundreds of thousands of square feet of empty offices brought. Many of the what I call the fast casual restaurants that relied on those office workers for lunch have either closed temporarily, they never reopened when they were allowed to, or they've closed permanently. And also what I would define as the finer dining restaurants with liquor licenses that used to be open for lunch and dinner, almost every single one of them now is closed for lunch and are only open for dinner, and on a much reduced schedule in terms of days of the week. Similarly, with our retailers, if you go to the local jewelry store, clothing store, whatever it is, they've greatly slashed their staff. They've reduced their hours. They've reduced the number of days that they're open because they just don't have that critical mass of office workers supporting their businesses. And we're afraid that if the governor chooses to extend this ban for another 6 months, it will have a catastrophic effect on the downtowns in terms of them being able to stay viable, regardless of the loosening of the restrictions and the capacity.
So, Joe, are there any discussions right now with any member of the governor's team? Because if we're pushing for kids to get back into the classrooms, why aren't we allowing for adults to get back into the office buildings? Especially so many of these offices are set up in a way that you can be, kind of at a distance from one another.
Great question. So for whatever reason, the state of Michigan is the only state in the country that still has a mandatory work from home order. The governor did announce that she has created a work group to study the issue. And while that's great, and while the local chambers of commerce and the Michigan Chamber of Commerce wants to support and participate in that event, we feel that it's probably about 9 months too late. I mean, we've had a whole year to try to figure this out, and 6 months certainly since the ban went in place. So while we're glad that it's being considered, we worry that it's going to further bog down the reopening and delay giving businesses and their employees the ability to decide for themselves what makes the most sense for them, provided they can do it in a safe manner that follows, like I said, the OSHA guidelines and CDC.
So what are some of the fines for businesses that are caught in violation? Because it seems like a lot of the focus has just been on the restaurant industry because they can kind of hold that liquor license over the owner's heads. Whereas if I'm in an office building, is it typically
Sure.
like a $1,000 fine? And is that coming from the state or your local health department?
So it is a monetary fine. It is coming from the state. Our issue is that, for the vast majority of people, they want to do the right thing and they want to follow the rules, right? And so, yes, it would be easier for a business to bring its employees back into their office because they're not as visible. And so, who would know unless somebody turned you in to the state, you may get away with it. But people don't want to be placed in the position of having to break the law. They don't want to have to do that. And so all we're asking is to allow employers to go back to what we were asked to do last April in coming up with a mitigation plan, a COVID protection plan, and then let employers and employees figure out themselves what makes the most sense. We're not saying everybody should go back 100% to their office. We have learned that people can be productive in a remote atmosphere, but we've also learned that there are obstacles to that. And people are really feeling, we've heard a lot about how kids are suffering from a lack of socialization. Well, guess what? So are office workers, people who want to be with their coworkers and they want to be with their bosses. They're feeling a lot of that separation anxiety as well. And so all we're asking is to give companies an opportunity to come up with a plan that makes collective bargaining situation, then obviously whichever union that represents your employees is also going to have a say in it ultimately.
Right. I mean, if we can do hybrid plans for our schools and get to get our kids back into the classroom, it seems like there should be some type of at least that discussion coming up in our workplaces as well.
And and we believe that a lot of times people take their cue from government. As part of this, we would like to see the state of Michigan develop, or if they've already developed, share with everyone what their plan is for bringing state employees back to their facilities. You have a situation like in Lansing, the state government is Lansing's #1 employer. 20,000 people support the business community in Lansing. Well, guess what? All state government offices, except for Secretary of State and some other emergency ones, remain open. There's been no discussion as to when state employees may come back, and we think that's an important part of it as well.
Yeah, and while they are saying that the services are still open and they're just doing it different, they're doing it remotely. Some people that have tried to have navigate getting a hold of people, it can be a little bit tricky. I mean, even when your offices are open, when it comes to government, it can be hard to, get through the red tape. So there are so many new layers to this whole debacle as well with some of the state employees. And so with that, Joe, what's new there in Birmingham Bloomfield area as far as businesses? Any new businesses opening right now?
Yeah, so we're very excited. As of Friday, I guess, the open date, and I believe that your show is going to be doing a segment and a tour. So we're very excited about the opening of the new Dexton Hotel in downtown Birmingham. This is a project that is almost 3 years in the making. It's right in the heart of downtown, right at, I guess it would be Old Woodward and Merrill, where the old where Manual real estate office was. It's a beautiful hotel, full amenities, really a crown jewel. The ownership group is the same group that opened the Foundation Hotel in downtown Detroit with the apparatus room. So if you're familiar with that hotel, similar but even nicer and better and more exquisite. And so they're getting ready to have a soft open on March 10th. And their restaurant will either open at that point or a little later as well. So that it's a beautiful facility, beautiful hotel. So we're very excited about that.
A tough time to be opening up a new hotel, though.
It is, and I think they, frankly, if they had wanted to, they could have opened a little sooner than they did. But obviously, you're right, that it was a tough environment to open in, not only because of lack of business travel, which I think they will rely on significantly, but also it's tough trying to recruit a workforce right now. And so, but they have met those challenges, and they're very excited about becoming a new crown jewel in downtown Birmingham.
That's awesome. We'll look forward to that because, yeah, it's like you said, the Fountain Hotel in downtown Detroit. It is beautiful. It's the old firehouse
Yes.
down there across from. Well, to me, it's always Coble, but I guess it's the TCF Center now.
Sure.
Just like it's always going to be Pine Knob.
Of course. Right.
So, how about anything else, though, Joe? Any other good news? I know that we've seen some businesses close.
Sure. We have, and I mentioned, the restaurants. We have said goodbye to several restaurants. For coffee lovers, we do have a new coffee roaster and coffee shop in downtown Birmingham called Seven Sisters. So that's very exciting. We have the French Lady, which is a French patisserie and little cafe has opened in downtown Birmingham. So we're encouraged by the fact that we are starting to see a little uptick in activity in terms of new businesses opening. Certainly nothing like it was pre-pandemic, and it's going to take a while. And so what we're really focused on at the Chamber is really supporting our existing members and making sure they have all the tools and information that they need to try to make it out through the other end. We're very encouraged by, vaccines continue to ramp up, and we feel that as more and more people get vaccinated, people will be more comfortable moving out and about, and we'll put this truly dark, now year-long chapter behind all of us. I'm sure all of us are really tired of this and are really tired of hearing, the words unprecedented and pivot and, whatever else you want to say. But having said that, we also want to encourage people to continue to do what they need to do to keep everybody safe, which is continue to social distance, continue to wear masks, and continue to wash your hands and do all the things we can, because the more we protect, the quicker we'll get rid of the virus.
Yeah, and and the big thing too is to remember, continue to support our local shops and businesses, because so many people are getting fatigued,
Right.
and they're forgetting about these local business owners, and we need them to survive because they make up the uniqueness of our neighborhoods.
I mean, small business is the backbone of the economy. It's also the backbone of unique downtown areas, right? National chains are great, but it's really the small businesses, the entrepreneurial-led mom and pop shops that lead that unique flavor. I'll just add one more thing. Not only do we need to support our small businesses, we need to be kind to their employees, and we need to be patient. Again, with retail and restaurants, I know all of them have significantly slashed their staffs because they just can't afford them. And so it might take a little longer to place your order. It might take a little longer to get your food. But you know what? They're doing the best they can under very trying circumstances. They're literally putting their safety, before you by continuing to work as an essential employee. So be kind, be patient, and be generous in your tipping when you are visiting one of our great local restaurants.
Well, Joe, it's been great talking to you as always, and thank you for all the hard work that you're doing behind the scenes there for so many of these businesses to keep them up and running during this time.
I do want to mention very briefly, I have to give a plug. If you are interested in our effort to reopen the offices, please visit the website, reopenmichigansafely.com. There's all kinds of information there. There's a sample letter you can send to your elected officials to encourage them to open up our offices.
That's good information. Thank you so much, Joe, again for being with us. We so appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.